Sarah Martinez had always been careful about where she went at night, but tonight felt different. The Crimson Lounge wasn't her usual spot, but her best friend Emma had insisted they celebrate Sarah's promotion at the marketing firm. The bar sat in the heart of downtown, with its dim lighting and polished mahogany surfaces creating an atmosphere that seemed both elegant and slightly dangerous. As Sarah sipped her second glass of wine, she noticed the group of men at the corner table. 3 of them, all wearing expensive suits and gold watches that caught the light whenever they moved. They had been glancing her way for the past hour, whispering among themselves and occasionally pointing in her direction. Emma had left 20 minutes ago to take a call from her boyfriend, promising to return quickly, but Sarah was beginning to feel exposed sitting alone at the bar. The bartender, a middle-aged man with graying temples named, had been friendly enough when Emma was there. Now he seemed distracted, constantly checking his phone and avoiding eye contact with Sarah. She found this odd, considering how attentive he had been earlier in the evening. One of the men from the corner table approached her. He was tall with slick-back dark hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. His cologne was overwhelming, a mixture of expensive scents that seemed to announce his presence before he even spoke. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, not waiting for an answer before sliding onto the next to her. "I'm Vincent. I couldn't help but notice you sitting here alone." Sarah felt her stomach tighten. Something about Vincent's tone and the way he positioned himself made her uncomfortable. She glanced toward the exit, noting that it was blocked by Vincent's 2 companions who had casually moved to stand near the door. "I'm actually waiting for my friend," Sarah replied, keeping her voice steady despite the anxiety building in her chest. "She'll be back any moment." Vincent chuckled, a sound that held no warmth. "Emma won't be coming back tonight. She received a very important phone call that required her immediate attention elsewhere." The blood drained from Sarah's face. How did this stranger know Emma's name? And what did he mean she wouldn't be coming back? Sarah's hand instinctively moved toward her purse where her phone was, but Vincent's hand shot out and grasped her wrist. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," he said softly, his grip firm but not yet painful. "We just want to have a conversation, nothing more. You see, your company has been working on some very interesting projects lately. Projects that my associates and I find quite valuable." Sarah's mind raced. She worked in marketing for a tech startup that had recently landed a contract with a major defense contractor. The project involved developing new software for military communication systems. Most of the technical details were above her clearance level, but she had access to client meetings and strategic planning sessions. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, trying to pull her wrist free. Vincent's grip tightened slightly. "Oh, but I think you do. Sarah Martinez, Senior Marketing Coordinator at TechFlow Solutions. You attended the meeting last Tuesday. You have access to the project timeline and budget allocations. You know exactly what we want." The bartender had disappeared into the back room, and Sarah realized with growing horror that this was planned. The bar was nearly empty now except for Vincent's men and a few other patrons who seemed oblivious to what was happening. The music continued playing, a jazz melody that felt mockingly cheerful given the circumstances. "Even if I knew what you were talking about, I would never help you steal classified information," Sarah said, her voice stronger than she felt. "That's treason." Vincent's smile widened. "Treason is such a harsh word. We prefer to think of it as freelance consulting. And before you get any noble ideas about refusing, you should know that we've done our homework on you." He pulled out his phone and showed her a photograph. It was her younger brother, sitting outside his college dormitory. The timestamp showed it had been taken earlier that day. "Is such a bright kid. Computer science major, isn't he? It would be unfortunate if something happened to interrupt his studies. College campuses can be such dangerous places." Sarah felt her world tilting. These people had researched her, planned this encounter, and now they were threatening her family. But as the initial shock wore off, something else began to build inside her. Not just fear, but anger. Pure, focused rage at these men who thought they could intimidate her into betraying her country. She had grown up in a military family. Her father had served 3 tours in Iraq before an IED took his life when she was 16. Her mother had raised Sarah and Alone, instilling in them both a fierce sense of patriotism and personal integrity. The idea of selling out everything her father had died protecting made her sick. "You have until tomorrow night to get us the information we need," Vincent continued. Project specifications, timelines, security protocols, everything. Will contact you with instructions on where to make the drop. And if I refuse? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. Then might have an accident, maybe a hit and run while he's walking to class, maybe a gas leak in his dorm room. These things happen to college students all the time. Vincent released her wrist and stood up. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Sarah, and remember, we'll be watching. Don't try to contact the police or FBI. We have people everywhere, and they'll know if you talk to anyone about this. As Vincent walked away to rejoin his companions, Sarah sat frozen at the bar. Her hands were trembling slightly, but her mind was beginning to work furiously. She thought about her father's stories from his military service, about the importance of never giving up even when the odds seemed impossible. These men had made a critical error. They assumed that threatening her family would make her compliant and terrified. Instead, they had awakened something inside her that she hadn't known existed. A strategic mind that had been honed by years of watching her military father plan missions and solve problems under pressure. Sarah finished her wine slowly, her eyes scanning the bar and memorizing every detail. Vincent's men were still by the door, but they had relaxed slightly, probably thinking their job was done. Had returned from the back room and was wiping down glasses, studiously avoiding looking in her direction. She began to formulate a plan. It was risky and would require perfect timing, but it might be her only chance to turn this situation around. Sarah had always been good at reading people and situations. It was part of what made her successful in marketing. Now she would need to use those skills in a way she never imagined. The first step was gathering intelligence. She needed to know who these people were, how they had found her, and what their real capabilities were. The threat against might be real, but it was also possible they were bluffing to increase the pressure on her. She had to find out which it was. As she prepared to leave the bar, Sarah caught looking at her nervously. That was when she realized he might be the weak link in their operation. Whatever they had on him or however they had recruited him, he clearly wasn't comfortable with what was happening. Sarah stood up slowly, making sure to appear defeated and scared. She wanted Vincent and his men to think their intimidation had worked completely. As she walked toward the exit, she stumbled slightly and dropped her purse near the bar. When she bent to pick it up, she whispered quickly to, "They're going to kill me after I give them what they want. You know that, right? And then you'll be the only witness left." She saw the fear flash in his eyes before she straightened up and continued toward the door. Vincent's men stepped aside to let her pass, their expressions satisfied and confident. Outside the bar, Sarah walked to her car with measured steps, knowing they were probably watching from the windows. But once she was inside and driving away, her mind shifted into high gear. She had less than 24 hours to figure out how to save herself and her brother while also protecting national security. The drive home gave her time to think more clearly about her options. Going to the police felt risky given Vincent's claims about having people everywhere, but she couldn't handle this alone. She needed allies, but they had to be people she could trust completely. As she pulled into her apartment complex, Sarah realized she had one advantage that Vincent and his men probably hadn't counted on: her father's old military contacts. Some of them had stayed in touch with her mother over the years, and a few worked in intelligence or security fields. If she could reach the right person without alerting Vincent's surveillance, she might be able to get help. But first, she needed to make sure was safe, and she needed to do it in a way that wouldn't tip off their watchers that she was planning something other than compliance. Sarah barely slept that night, her mind working through every detail of what had happened at the Crimson Lounge. By dawn, she had developed a plan that was both simple and dangerous. She would appear to cooperate while secretly gathering evidence and setting a trap for Vincent and his associates. The first call she made was to her brother, using a casual tone that she hoped wouldn't alarm him. "Hey, little brother, how's the semester going?" she asked, settling into her kitchen chair with a cup of coffee that she hoped would steady her nerves. "Sarah, it's like 7 in the morning. Since when do you call this early?" His voice was groggy but concerned. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, but I want you to do something for me. Remember our cousin Danny in Phoenix, Mom's nephew? I think you should visit him this weekend, like leave today if you can." There was a pause on the other end. Was smart enough to understand that his sister didn't make random requests, especially not at dawn. "This is about work, isn't it? That government contract thing you mentioned." Sarah felt a surge of pride at her brother's quick understanding. Just trust me on this one. Take a friend if you want, make it look like a fun road trip. But don't tell anyone else where you're going, and don't post anything on social media until Monday. After agreed to leave that morning, Sarah's next move was more delicate. She needed to reach Colonel James Harrison, her father's old commanding officer who now worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency. But she couldn't risk calling from her regular phone or her apartment, which might be monitored. Sarah drove to a busy shopping center 20 minutes from her home and used a prepaid phone she bought with cash. Colonel Harrison answered on the third ring, his voice crisp and professional even though it was still early. "Colonel Harrison, this is Sarah Martinez, Captain Roberto Martinez's daughter." "Sarah, good to hear from you. How's your mother doing?" "She's well, thank you, sir. But I need your help with something urgent. I can't explain over the phone, but it involves the TechFlow Solutions defense contract and some people who want information they shouldn't have." The colonel's tone immediately shifted. "Where are you right now?" "Shopping center on Maple Street. I'm using a clean phone." "Stay mobile and stay in public places. Can you get to the federal building downtown by 10 this morning? Use the main entrance and ask for Agent Jennifer Park in the FBI field office. Tell her I sent you. Don't go home first, don't stop anywhere predictable." Sarah felt her first moment of real hope since the previous night. "Thank you, Colonel." "Sarah, your father was one of the finest soldiers I ever served with. We take care of our own." The next few hours felt like the longest of Sarah's life. She drove around the city, stopping at random coffee shops and stores to kill time while staying in crowded areas. At exactly 10 o'clock, she walked into the federal building. Agent Jennifer Park turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s with short black hair and a no-nonsense attitude. She listened without interruption as Sarah recounted everything that had happened at the Crimson Lounge. "You did the right thing coming to us," Agent Park said when Sarah finished her story. "Vincent is someone we've been watching for months. He's connected to a foreign intelligence network that's been trying to penetrate defense contractors. So the threat against my brother is real." "The threat is real, but your brother is safe now that he's out of their immediate reach. However, we need to be very careful about how we proceed. If suspects were involved, he might disappear and we'll lose our chance to catch his entire network." Agent Park leaned forward, her expression intense. "We want you to keep your meeting with them tonight, but you'll be wearing a wire and we'll have backup nearby. The goal is to get them to incriminate themselves and hopefully lead us to their handlers." Sarah felt her stomach drop. The thought of facing Vincent again, of pretending to betray her country even with FBI support, was terrifying. But she also knew it was the only way to ensure her brother's safety and stop these people from threatening other families. "What kind of information will I be giving them?" "We've prepared a package of documents that look authentic but contain subtle errors and false data. If they try to use it, it won't actually compromise national security, but it will help us track where the information goes and who receives it." The rest of the morning was spent in preparation. Sarah was fitted with a nearly invisible recording device and given detailed instructions on how to behave during the meeting. Agent Park emphasized that Sarah's safety was the top priority, but they also needed her to try to get Vincent to reveal details about his organization and future plans. "Remember, you're supposed to be scared and reluctant," Agent Park coached her. "Don't appear too eager to cooperate or they might get suspicious. Act like someone who's being forced into this against their will." That afternoon, Sarah returned to her apartment to wait for Vincent's contact. She had been instructed to act normally, so she did some work from home and tried to maintain her usual routine. At 4 o'clock, her phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. "Sarah, this is Vincent. I trust you've had time to consider our conversation." "I have the information you want," Sarah said, letting her voice shake slightly. "But I want assurances about my brother's safety." "You'll get those assurances when I have the documents in my hand. Meet me at Riverside Park at 8 tonight. Come alone and bring everything we discussed." The park was a public space, but would be relatively empty after dark. Sarah realized this was probably intentional, public enough that she wouldn't be too afraid to show up, but isolated enough for them to spot any surveillance. As evening approached, Sarah felt her nerves building despite her FBI training session. Agent Park had assured her that a team would be monitoring from a distance, but Sarah would essentially be on her own during the actual exchange. She arrived at Riverside Park 15 minutes early, as instructed, and found a bench near the designated meeting spot. The park was quiet except for the sound of water flowing over rocks in the nearby stream and the distant hum of traffic. A few joggers passed by, and Sarah wondered if any of them were her FBI backup. Vincent appeared exactly at 8 o'clock, approaching from the direction of the parking area. He was alone, which surprised Sarah since he had brought associates to the bar. "I appreciate punctuality," he said, sitting down beside her on the bench. "Do you have what I need?" Sarah pulled a manila envelope from her purse. "Everything you asked for, project specifications, timeline, security protocols, but I want to know that my brother is safe before I give this to you." Vincent smiled and pulled out his phone, showing her a recent photo of laughing with friends at what appeared to be a restaurant. The timestamp showed it was from that afternoon, which meant they had tracked him to Phoenix. Sarah's blood ran cold, but she tried not to let her reaction show. Was supposed to be safe, but somehow Vincent's people had followed him. Either their surveillance was more extensive than the FBI had realized, or there was a leak somewhere. As you can see, is having a wonderful time with his friends. He'll continue to have wonderful times as long as you continue to be cooperative. Sarah handed over the envelope, her hand trembling slightly. Vincent opened it and quickly scanned the documents inside, his expression satisfied. "This is exactly what we needed. You've been very helpful, Sarah." "So we're done. You'll leave my brother alone now." Vincent's laugh sent chills down her spine. "Oh no, this is just the beginning. You see, now that you've provided classified information to foreign agents, you're officially a traitor, which means you'll continue to work for us, or we'll expose your crimes and destroy your life completely." Sarah had expected this, but hearing it confirmed still felt like a punch to the stomach. "You said this was a one-time thing." "I lied. People in my line of work do that frequently. Don't worry, though, we won't ask for anything too difficult. Just occasional updates on your company's projects and access to certain meetings. Think of it as a very well-paid consulting arrangement." As Vincent stood to leave, Sarah made her move. "Wait, I need to know something. How did you find me in the first place? How did you know about my security clearance and my brother?" Vincent paused, clearly debating whether to answer. "Let's just say that your company's HR database isn't as secure as they think it is. We've been monitoring several employees for months, waiting for the right opportunity. You were simply the most vulnerable target." This revelation was exactly what Agent Park had hoped to get. If Vincent's people had hacked TechFlow solution systems, it meant other employees and projects were at risk. It also gave the FBI a concrete crime to investigate. "I'll contact you in a few days with your next assignment," Vincent continued. "And remember, we're always watching. Any attempt to contact authorities or warn your company will result in very unpleasant consequences for both you and—" After Vincent disappeared into the darkness, Sarah sat alone on the bench for several minutes as instructed. She was supposed to wait for an all-clear signal from her FBI contact before leaving the park. When her phone finally buzzed with a text from Agent Park, Sarah felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. The wire recording had captured everything Vincent said, including his admission about hacking TechFlow's systems and his plan to use Sarah as a long-term asset. But the revelation that they had tracked to Phoenix meant the danger was far from over. Driving home, Sarah realized that what had started as a simple night out with her friend had become something much larger and more dangerous. She was now officially an FBI informant in an ongoing espionage investigation, and Vincent's people were still out there, still threatening her family. But she had also learned something important about herself. When cornered and threatened, she hadn't crumbled. Instead, she had found resources and strength she didn't know she possessed. Her father would have been proud of how she was fighting back against people who wanted to harm her country. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as the FBI began their broader investigation into the espionage network. Sarah would have to continue pretending to cooperate with Vincent while secretly working to bring down his entire operation. It would be the most dangerous acting job of her life, but she was ready for it. 2 weeks later, Sarah had become someone she barely recognized. By day, she continued her work at TechFlow Solutions as if nothing had changed, attending meetings and reviewing marketing campaigns with professional efficiency. By night, she lived a double life as an FBI informant, carefully documenting every contact from Vincent's organization while feeding them controlled information designed to expose their network. The transformation hadn't been easy. Agent Park had worked with her extensively on how to detect surveillance, how to communicate securely, and most importantly, how to maintain her cover while gathering intelligence. Sarah had discovered she had a natural talent for reading people and situations that served her well in this dangerous new world. Vincent had contacted her 3 times since their meeting in the park, each time requesting specific information about TechFlow's projects. With FBI guidance, Sarah had provided documents that appeared valuable but contained subtle tracking markers and false data. The goal was to map out Vincent's network by following where the information went and who accessed it. The breakthrough came on a Thursday evening when Vincent requested an urgent meeting. Instead of their usual public locations, he directed Sarah to a warehouse district on the outskirts of the city. This deviation from their established pattern immediately raised red flags for both Sarah and her FBI handlers. "Something's changed," Agent Park told Sarah during their pre-meeting briefing. "Either they're getting ready to move to the next phase of their operation or they've become suspicious. We'll have more backup tonight, but you'll also be in more danger." Sarah understood the risks, but she also knew they were close to catching Vincent's entire organization. The FBI had traced the false information she had provided to servers in 3 different countries and identified at least 6 other individuals connected to the network. Tonight's meeting might provide the final pieces of evidence they needed. The warehouse Vincent had chosen was in an industrial area that was largely abandoned after business hours. Sarah arrived exactly on time, her recording equipment carefully concealed and her nerves under tight control. She had learned to channel her fear into focused concentration, a skill that had become essential for survival. This time, Vincent wasn't alone. His 2 associates from the Crimson Lounge were there, along with 2 other men Sarah didn't recognize. One was an older man in an expensive coat who carried himself with obvious authority. The other was younger, with the alert posture of someone accustomed to violence. "Sarah, I'm glad you could join us," Vincent said, his tone more formal than usual. "I'd like you to meet my supervisor, mister." The older man stepped forward, studying Sarah with cold, intelligent eyes. "Ms. Martinez, you've been very helpful to our organization. Tonight, we have a special request that will require you to expand your role significantly." Sarah felt her mouth go dry, but she maintained her composure. "What kind of expansion?" "We want you to plant monitoring software on your company's main servers," explained. "This will give us real-time access to all TechFlow projects, not just the ones you work on directly." The request was exactly what Agent Park had predicted might happen. Vincent's organization was moving from simple document theft to systematic cyber espionage. If successful, they would have access to classified information from multiple defense contracts, potentially compromising national security on a massive scale. "I don't have that kind of access," Sarah replied, which was true. "I'm in marketing, not it. The servers are in a restricted area that requires special clearance." Smiled coldly. "We've arranged for you to get the access you need. Tomorrow morning, you'll receive notification that you've been selected for a special project team that requires temporary IT clearance. All you need to do is install our software during your lunch break when fewer people are around." Sarah realized with growing horror that these people had infiltrated TechFlow more deeply than anyone had imagined. The ability to manipulate clearance notifications meant they had either hacked the company's systems extensively or had an inside accomplice in a position of significant authority. "What if I'm caught? Security cameras monitor those areas constantly." "We've taken care of the cameras," the younger man spoke for the first time, his accent revealing Eastern European origins. "For exactly 17 minutes tomorrow between 12:15 and 12:32, the camera system will experience a routine maintenance glitch. That's your window." The level of planning and coordination these people had achieved was staggering. Sarah understood that she was no longer dealing with a simple espionage ring, but with a sophisticated intelligence operation that had been months or perhaps years in the making. "And if I refuse?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. Pulled out a tablet and showed her a video feed. It was dorm room, viewed from what appeared to be a hidden camera. As they watched, entered the frame and sat down at his desk to study, completely unaware he was being watched. "We can reach your brother at any time," said matter-of-factly. "But if you continue to cooperate, he'll remain safe and you'll be well compensated for your efforts. After tomorrow's task, we'll deposit $50,000 in an offshore account we've established for you." Sarah felt sick, but she also felt something else. These people had made their second critical error. Their first mistake had been underestimating her resolve when they threatened her family. Their second mistake was showing her just how extensive their operation was, giving her information that would be invaluable to the FBI investigation. "I'll do it," she said quietly, "but I want assurances that this will be the end of it. I want out after tomorrow." Vincent and exchanged glances before laughed. "Ms. Martinez, you're far too valuable to let go, but don't worry, your future assignments won't be as stressful as this one." As the meeting ended and Sarah prepared to leave, handed her a small USB device. "This contains the software you'll install. Simply plug it into any server terminal and it will automatically upload and configure itself. The entire process takes less than 3 minutes." Driving away from the warehouse, Sarah's mind was racing. The USB device in her purse felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Agent Park had prepared her for this possibility, and Sarah knew exactly what she needed to do. But the execution would require perfect timing and nerves of steel. The next morning arrived gray and cold, matching Sarah's mood as she prepared for what would be the most dangerous day of her life. She arrived at TechFlow early, wanting to establish a normal routine before the afternoon's activities. At exactly 10:30, she received the email had promised, notifying her of her selection for a special project team and granting her temporary IT access. During her lunch break, Sarah made her way to the server room with Vincent's USB device hidden in her pocket. But she also carried a second device, one provided by the FBI that would capture and analyze any software from Vincent's USB while preventing it from actually infiltrating TechFlow's systems. The server room was exactly as had described, empty and unmonitored during the maintenance window. Sarah approached the main terminal and paused, knowing that everything hinged on the next few minutes. If Vincent's people were watching more carefully than expected, if the FBI's countermeasures failed, or if she made any error in the complex procedure Agent Park had taught her, the consequences could be catastrophic. She inserted the FBI device first, waiting for the indicator light that would tell her it was ready to capture and contain any malicious software. Then she plugged in Vincent's USB device and watched as code began flowing across the screen. The FBI device was recording everything, creating a complete map of Vincent's cyber tools while preventing any actual infiltration. After exactly 2 minutes and 45 seconds, Sarah removed both devices and deleted the activity logs as she had been trained. To any casual observer, the servers had experienced a brief routine maintenance check, but the FBI now had complete intelligence on Vincent's cyber warfare capabilities. That evening, Sarah received a text from Vincent congratulating her on a successful mission. But unknown to him, FBI agents were already moving to arrest other members of his network based on the intelligence gathered from the USB device. The software had contained digital fingerprints that led directly to servers and individuals across multiple countries. 3 days later, Sarah sat in Agent Park's office, watching news reports about a major international espionage ring that had been broken up by a joint FBI and CIA operation. Vincent, Alexander, and 14 other individuals had been arrested in coordinated raids across 4 countries. "Your brother is completely safe now," Agent Park told her. "The surveillance on him has been removed and the entire network has been dismantled. You did something incredible, Sarah." Sarah felt a mixture of relief and exhaustion. The past 3 weeks had changed her in ways she was still processing. She had discovered reserves of courage and intelligence she never knew she possessed, but she had also lived with constant fear for her family's safety. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you go back to your regular life," Agent Park replied. "TechFlow has been briefed on the security breach and is implementing new protocols. Your company will probably offer you a promotion to their security division if you're interested. Turns out you have quite a talent for this kind of work." As Sarah left the federal building and walked into the sunshine, she reflected on how a simple night out with her friend had led to her becoming a key figure in dismantling an international espionage network. Vincent and his associates had thought they could corner her, intimidate her into betraying her country through threats against her family. Instead, they had awakened something in Sarah that she hadn't known existed. The daughter of a fallen soldier had found her own way to serve her country, using intelligence and courage to turn their own trap against them. She had learned that being cornered didn't make her powerless, it made her dangerous. Her phone rang as she reached her car. It was calling from his campus where he was now safe to resume his normal life. "Hey sis, I saw the news about some spy thing. That wasn't connected to why you sent me to Phoenix, was it?" Sarah smiled, feeling truly happy for the first time in weeks. "Let's just say you picked a great weekend for a road trip. How about dinner tomorrow? I have some stories to tell you." As she drove home, Sarah realized that Vincent had been right about one thing. That night at the Crimson Lounge had been just the beginning, but not in the way he had intended. Instead of being the start of her career as a traitor, it had been the beginning of her transformation into someone who could face down threats and protect the things that mattered most to her. The woman who had sat alone at that bar 3 weeks ago, frightened and vulnerable, no longer existed. In her place was someone stronger, someone who had learned that even when you're cornered, you always have choices. And sometimes, if you're smart enough and brave enough, you can turn the tables on everyone.